in this era of like kind of global free trade, like national sovereignty and things like that, this has led to like unprecedented relative peace and things like that. And we're starting to like pull back the like walls of like these institutions and rules around like invading and co-opting other countries. I think that's bad because it's like, it is, I think that's bad. And because it's such a regression of like what global society is like built around, which I think is in a lot of ways good. And I'm not saying that there's no scrutiny to be had of that sentence either, but it makes me fearful is like, okay, well, if nobody's following the rules anymore and we're going back to old times of invading and taking over
makes
and
right
like
for every situation,
sacrificing this like economic system that we've made, I don't know, the costs of that worry me.
There's a good book by Peter Zahan. I don't know how you say his name. You might, but called The Accidental Superpower. And it's basically about how the global order got set up, amongst other things, after World War II. And basically, the U.S. did this. The U.S. could have continued the previous world order after World War II, and instead was like, let's do this global thing. We, America, will basically make it happen, and we will pay for all the global shipping to be safe, and we will basically institute this order across the world. Asterisk, asterisk, right?
Yeah,
and then there's Soviet
which is something
Union.
that the U.S. is like, they, from a short-term perspective, may even have come across as like generous, but it's like in the long term, like ultimately it was way better for the
billions
U.S.
of people
too.
have come out of poverty. The issue, and at least what he talks about in the book, and I think that there's value to this, is as the world has gotten bigger and more complex, it is more expensive to do that. So the one area where there is, I don't want to say I agree with him, but there's truth to what Trump is saying is like, it is not feasible for America to police the world order anymore. And that is particularly true with like Russia doing what it's doing and China doing what it's doing. And so I don't think the extreme of, okay, let's pull back from everywhere and just be internal is good, because then the whole thing collapses. But there is, I think, truth to the idea that that order can't go forever. The US is $34 trillion in debt. We cannot afford to police everything in the world. Europe doesn't spend much on military. We do it for them. Same with, particularly Germany and Japan, right? Like, at some point, it's not feasible for the U.S. to go in this direction forever. And so I think this is inevitable to a degree. It's been, 80 years exactly? Basically 80 years exactly of the current world order. And Trump is very explicitly trying to tear it down. But I'm not convinced that, if he wasn't there, then this wouldn't be in motion. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. 100% agree with that.
He's accelerating the motion a lot. But that is the motion. Like, we can't afford this, just straight up. It can't continue in its current form. Something has to change.
That's funny, because let me get my thoughts. I think that's super interesting, and I like your POV. But you guys talked about it like this was generous or whatever. And in my mind, it was like, and I'm like a patriot, dude. I'm actually
I wouldn't
this
actually
stuff
call
has been
it
set up
generous
to our benefit.
I agree with that.
It's self-serving.
It's self-serving, and I don't think that unwinding it is to our benefit. I think you're right that as these economies, China is now a bigger trade partner with most of the globe than America. Brazil is a much bigger economy than all these countries are bigger economies, and they want a bigger say in the world. I think it's going to shift because of that. But I think America trying to unwind it is kind of crazy because it's all helped us. It's all been to our benefit for so long. Like the system, NATO, the United Nations. We say that Europe is spending too much on, or not enough on military because we're spending too much. But it's given us so much power over European decisions. Specifically, like if we're like, hey, we want to build our EV industry outside of China, let's tariff Chinese EVs. Europe just goes along with it. They just do the same thing. They do that because we have.
And once the U.S. unwinds, if it continues to happen, I don't think you get it back. There's a particular situation in the world where the U.S. was in this position where all the previous global powers were decimated after World War II, except the Soviet Union. Yeah. They had all the industry, they had all the trade. They were the sole sort of standing, were the sole standing power. And we're in the position to dictate whatever we want. And there was this argument of they could have been we are going to be the new British Empire. We're going to fuck all y'all. I mean, totally. and instead they were very kind, generous people who we are all thankful for. And that's what we're taking away from it. Yeah, but
comments.
And they were, according, I'm just going to put quotes here. They were very generous.
Absolutely no meddling.
Yeah,
zero meddling.
Right.
Famously.
Famously zero.
Show me the documents where we meddled one time. Yeah, I think that is the pro. I kind of agree with Brandon. Is deconstruction. This is why it's a hard topic to.
It is hard, by the way.
This is a hard. Okay, I think I'll say it in a more straightforward way. This is a hard topic for me to argue about, not at a personal level, but I feel like there is a conflict as someone who I think I lean pretty left on most like most issues in general. And I think there's like I don't know if I definitely wouldn't call myself a socialist like outright, but I think there's a socialist viewpoint here that is also advocating for a like deconstruction of this global order, not for American fiscal reasons, but to like dismantle the like systems of oppression that like they would identify exist across the world among this current system. Not that oppression and like people being exploited didn't exist before World War II.
It didn't.
But it's and that level of like American like empire and like control is it's super interesting because it's like, yes, that has such a demonstrable positive effect if you believe in I don't know, like getting rid of all these things has like such a identifiable harm on the US, but there's different perspectives on like why that all needs to be deconstructed and come down.
Oh,
and
totally.
I think because there's all these different layers of like what people see as the most important outcomes, who are the people that need help the most, what actions would help those people. I feel like I'm a very like solution oriented person, and this problem is so layered. It's like, oh, of course I'm not going to solve it. I'm running a lemonade stand.
Yeah, we're running a lemonade stand.
So I don't have the answer because I like a lot of what like our globalized safe economy and society gives me. I like a lot of those things, and I also, selfishly benefit from a lot of like the power and control that the U.S. has. Especially as somebody who immigrated here and found, got to make a
crossed
podcast.
the ditch.
I crossed the ditch.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like I'm wary of something like can the debt grow forever? Right. If you listen to that one economist who wrote The Deficit Myth, apparently it can. Apparently it can.
Stephanie Kelton has interesting ideas.
Or from other perspectives, like maybe you have a strong like moral stance, like built in what you'd call like socialist values, and you want to see the deconstruction of the global order for those reasons. Like I don't know. I don't know what path
I don't
is
have
correct.
that take, but I can respect it. Right. I can totally see it and make sense. Maybe a loss here is offset by a greater gain in the world if all humans benefit the rising tide. I get that. I actually have no problem with that. The thing that makes me mad is Americans that don't realize that the reason that a guy managing a Buc-ee's in Texas makes more than a European doctor is because of these systems of power that have America at the core.
Yes.
And like they think they can vote to dismantle this stuff. They think they're just born better, that they're just they're getting this, they're not, and they're gonna feel the punishment from this stuff unraveling as they are more and more not protected from equal competition with the globe. I don't think it's fair. I agree it's not fair, but I'm saying as an American who wants a certain thing, it's crazy to not understand the consequences of dismantling this stuff that's all to your benefit.
I definitely agree with that take, which is that it is not to America's benefit to dismantle this. Like we have benefited from deciding the global order. And then if you dismantle it, there's like you said, there's arguably there's all sorts of crazy complex things. I don't think it's great that American spy agencies have picked winners in various countries over the past 100 years. Like that's fucked up. Like that we just get to decide.
The thing about it is like cool, I can't think of a single time it backfired.
Right, that's true. That's true.
The thing about it is like it's just
so it always worked out so smoothly. So I really don't see.
It's deeply immoral the idea that we do that.
The CIA simply batted 1,000. Can I say it? They were kind of the Shohei Ohtani of government agencies. They
went to Venezuela. They pitch and bat.
The fucking CIA was the Ohtani of government agencies. In a fire bar. That is fire. They just kept knocking. Every coup.
Because if it blew back, if it had blown back
out of the country,
if it had blown back, I'd be critical.